Welcome back to the 8th concession. My name is Natalie. 8th concession is our property here in rural southern Ontario, Zone 5B. Actually, I think I have to change that. I was reading that they're just changing the planting zones here. I don't know whether it's just Ontario or all of Canada, to reflect the fact that we're having warmer summers, we're having earlier springs, frost isn't coming as quickly in the fall. So I think I'm now zone 6A. I have to double check that and learn to say that. I'm so used to saying zone 5B. Anyway, it's August. It's going to be a hot day. We're going up into the 30s here in Celsius. And I think with the humidex, it's closer to 40. And I want to get some chores done here in the garden before the day gets too hot and uncomfortable. Today, I am going to be harvesting my potatoes. Now, the potatoes I planted this year, I didn't get around to buying seed potatoes, and I actually had some potatoes left over from last year that I had grown myself, and they had sprouted in my cold cellar. Now, the thing is, they're rather small. I ate all the big ones, and I was left with the smaller ones. And I wanted to see what would happen planting smaller potatoes to grow potatoes. Now, I know people have done experiments with garlic, and I remember watching it. A guy planted smaller cloves of garlic from his garlic and larger cloves, all in the same bed, same conditions, and he wanted to see if it made a difference in how the plant grew. And sure enough, the larger cloves produced larger garlic bulbs. So I always save my largest garlic to plant for next year. But is it the same with potatoes? I don't know. So I'm anxious to see what I'm going to get. I planted either 2 or 3 small potatoes in each of the fiber bags that I've been using because I didn't have enough garden space. I've been using the fiber bags, and it's worked out well because I can dig down in the loose compost very easily, and I don't risk slicing or stabbing potatoes. You know, if you grow them in the ground and you have to dig them up with a spade or a fork, you risk actually hitting the potatoes. So I don't have to do that with these, but I have no idea what I'm going to get. Is it worthwhile, or if I have small potatoes left over at the end of this year, do I just throw them away and buy new seed potatoes? I'm all about being able to produce my own vegetables for free. In other words, finding a way to save seeds or save tubers so that overall I don't have to re-buy things every year. I mean, I do if I want to try a new variety. But for the potatoes, I thought, well, let's give this a try. Okay, let's see what I got. Now you can see that I've actually moved the fiber pots. They were back here, and I've moved them down the aisles here simply because we have been preparing the ground to expand the garden. We haven't gotten there yet, only because it's been so hot. But you can see how fast the weeds are growing up. So now I'm going to wait for Craig to kindly chop down those weeds again so I can start building the beds. But I am kind of waiting for the cooler weather too. It's really so uncomfortable to work in the heat. Anyway, here are the fiber pots. They're in this aisle, and there are some, oh, mosquitoes are bad again. There's some over in this aisle, but you can see that they died back. And it's time to see what treasures lie within. Well, that's not boding very well. They're beautiful looking, but they are small. Let's see if the rest are the same. So there you go. There's my potato harvest out of 10 fiber bags. 2 or 3 small potatoes to start. It's somewhat disappointing. They're pretty small. There are no large potatoes at all. The largest are about this size, a medium size. Now, they look wonderful, and they're going to be delicious. I think most of them, because they're so small, I will scrub them, parboil them, and then fry them, and they'll be yummy. But that, I would say, probably barely 10 pounds. So I think that's actually an answer to my question. I think it does matter what potatoes you start with. I think even if you start with a large potato and cut it, the genetics of the potato are still that of a large potato, because I got much bigger potatoes last year. Now, that doesn't mean I start with seed potatoes. I typically start with store-bought potatoes if they've sprouted, because they're a lot cheaper. And I've had good luck with them, but I start with the bags of stored potatoes, which again are larger. So I think it kind of follows the same principle as the garlic cloves. You have to put in good sized potatoes, or parts of good sized potatoes, to get good sized potatoes. Now, it has been a hot, dry summer, but I don't think that's the problem. There were lots of them, but they were small. So they're going to be delicious. They were completely free from leftover potatoes, so I can't complain about that, but I do think next year I'm going to have to start with larger potatoes again, and hopefully my new beds will be in and I can actually plant them in there, and they're not so restricted in the size of container they're in. Although I don't think that really makes that much difference, because I've gotten bigger potatoes in the fiber bags before. So there you go. Now, I was thinking of harvesting my onions today because they're looking fantastic. However, even though they've fallen over, there's still a lot of green going on, and we don't have any rain forecast for 3 or 4 days, and even then I think it's only a 40% chance. So I'm going to leave them just a tiny bit longer, and before I pull them, because I don't want them to get rained on. I don't want them to start rotting, but it is going to be hot and dry until then. But look at the size of these bulbs. I am really happy with how they look. Big, beautiful onions. These red ones look delicious. And back here are the Dutch onions. They also look really good. Now you can see in around the onions, I have some volunteer tomatoes. Now, this was a tomato bed last year. I pulled hundreds of them early in the year, but I thought, you know, with the onions coming out of the bed in August, early August, that still leaves an empty bed. And seeing as these tomatoes are determined to grow, and I have a hard time killing anything that wants to grow, I'm actually going to let them grow and see if I can get some late tomato crops off of them. They are probably going to be cross-pollinated because there were different varieties in here, but I'm gonna let them grow and see. They're not for show or anything, they're for eating. Back here I had some Peron sprayless, and then I think I had silver fir, but none of these are not silver fir. You can tell by the leaves. These are just regular tomato leaves. The silver fir have very finely cut leaves. I don't see any of them here. So I'm not quite sure what kind of tomatoes these are. These are not the plum tomatoes because they were in the other bed. I'm trying to think. Maybe these are all Peron sprayless. I think at the front here I had some Mountain Magic, which are a cocktail-sized tomato. So some of these up here might be smaller. They might be like a cherry tomato cocktail tomato cross. It'll actually be kind of fun to see and to get free tomatoes. The onions that had sprouted in my basement from last year that I planted for seed, they're doing well. Remember, they had big white popcorn ball flowers? Well, you can see now that they've developed little seed pods, and I have to wait a little longer till it kind of turns brown. And then inside each of these, I think, are 3 onion seeds. And I have several of these lovely big heads. The other thing I was questioning that I might harvest today are my leeks. they're doing great. They're nice and fat. Let's have a look down in here. They're looking great. But I don't want to harvest them and then not chop them and freeze them immediately, and I don't think I have time today. So I'm actually going to leave them a couple of more days. I don't want to leave them too long. Some years when I've left them too long, they start getting eaten by some sort of little worms, leek caterpillars, or I don't know what. Well, that's interesting. One of my leeks over here has developed a flower head. I wonder if I can get my own leek seeds out of that. There have been a couple of other misses in the garden this year. Let me show you. These are my subarctic plenty tomatoes. Now, you can see blight really got to them. They didn't seem to have a lot of strength. And the 40 days on the package where it said they were ready to harvest has come and gone. They're not ready in my garden anyway in 40 days. However, they do have a lot of nice looking fruit. So I'm pleased with that, and I will be harvesting them. Again, they're a little bit small, but it is a very hot, dry summer. So I've been trying to water, but you know, tomatoes are a very thirsty plant. That being said, these at the back are my Peron sprayless. Now again, you can see at the bottom they have a lot of blight damage, but because they're indeterminate, and that means they keep growing as long as the temperature permits, unlike the subarctic plenty, which are determinate, so they grow to their full size, they set their fruit and they're done. Peron sprayless are indeterminate, so you can see that they're continuing to grow. So even though the bottom is a bit ravaged, the top is still growing, still blooming with flowers and setting fruit. Now they are later. I mean, the subarctic plenty are going to be ready to pick in, you know, the next week. And these are not, but they're got lovely tomatoes on them. You can see they're a good size. And there's still more coming over there. So I don't know, I think for my difficult conditions with blight and humidity, the Peron sprayless still seem to be the winner. In front of them are the pollock, and they didn't fare so well. Here's something else that did not fare well. I should say farewell to them. Those are my zucchini plants. I don't know what happened to them. They were big and beautiful. I was getting huge zucchini off them, and they just up and died. I would say within a week. By the look of the leaves, I think there was some squash bug pressure that I didn't get to maybe quick enough because of the weather. So, you know, every year you learn something in your garden, and I think I'm going to have to be more careful checking for squash bugs, because I suspect that's kind of what did them in. On a positive note, you know, I really didn't mean to do a garden tour today, but I can't help myself. These are my yellow peas, the ones that I'm growing to make French Canadian pea soup. And there are a ton of pea pods. Now they're not fat yet. The peas inside are still fairly small, but they're looking great. And the pepper plants, they're going crazy. I don't know how much fruit they're setting, but they certainly are happy plants. There's a lot of flowers. I just think they're going to be late again, even though I started them earlier. And you may have noticed this contraption in the background. I've just put a bit of netting over my Himrod green seedless grape. Those of you who know plants might recognize this damage. This sort of lacy leaf damage, that is Japanese beetles. Now I've had them in the orchard. I'm used to having them in the orchard, and they can do a lot of damage, but I didn't want them damaging my green grape. So I've just covered them to discourage the Japanese beetles from landing and eating the leaves. Did I mention that the company that I bought these grapevines from, Whiffletree, actually did reimburse me, gave me a credit for the Vanessa grape that didn't grow, so I can get another one next year. I really like dealing with that company. I love these zinnias. They're one bush, but with several different colors in them. I actually saved the seeds myself last year, and they really are so pretty in the garden. Oh, and for people who've gardened for a while, there's something else I have to show you. See if you can guess what I dealt with yesterday. I'm going to show you this first. Down on the top of the bed, you recognize those? How about this? Or this? Damage. Yes, that's right. Yesterday I found 4 big fat tomato hornworms. They are so disgusting. I found 4. I'm always suspicious. I think I've probably missed more, so I'm going to have to keep on the hunt. They are vile. I know some people actually go out at night with like a black light because they're a little bit bioluminescent and they can see them more easily. I found them just because I kept looking until I found them. They have such a perfect tomato green color. They're very hard to see, but they do tend to hang under like a stalk of leaves. So I found 4 great big ones. So they'd been there a while and they've done some damage, but the tomato plants are recovering. They're going to be okay. In one of them, it was starting to actually eat the green tomatoes. That's what I don't want. I don't want them eating my crop. And I'm going to have to keep looking, but look out for those big black, almost rectangular shaped poops. And look for tomato leaves stripped right down to the stalk. And you will most likely find a tomato hornworm. To get rid of them, I don't use any pesticides. I pick them off and I actually fed them to the turkeys who thought they were a great treat. So yes, there is always some disappointment in the garden, some failures, things to learn. Every year you learn something new, especially as I've moved to this property. I think this is my 6th gardening season here, and you need to learn, you know, what works and what doesn't in a new garden, and what sort of pest pressure there is, what sort of water table you're dealing with. So despite the fact that there are some setbacks this year, I've already had decent harvests for some of the things. The onions look great. I just have to make sure I don't leave them in so long that they rot and ruin them. Other things, not so good. That's gardening for you. Let me know what you're having trouble with in your garden so I don't feel so bad about my garden. Oh dear. Well, I'm going to go and make some delicious Parisian potatoes tonight with supper, and that will cheer me up. Bye for now.